Hello, smart people. How are you today? Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. So, we usually talk about tech trends and very practical technology tools and so on. But today, I want to talk about mindset because I have honestly noticed that founders usually give up not because of external circumstances, but because they just can't take it anymore, because basically it gets too difficult. And my aim in this show and at Tech for Non-Techies, the program, my aim is to help you be really successful as a tech innovator, as a non-technical tech innovator. So one of the key components of success is your mindset. And in my experience and in what I've seen with my students, there's co-founder drama, there's investor drama. If you're running a startup, you're definitely going to be running out of cash at some point. Your product launches will definitely be late. And all of these problems, they feel really bad and they feel very dramatic, but they're actually solvable. And in fact, if you actually look at every successful founder, they have gone through this. But the thing is, when these things happen, you need to be able to think strategically as opposed to panic. And there is a caveat to that because there are big exogenous events like COVID or maybe like a new government regulation that basically totally outlaws business. And that happens, and these big exogenous circumstances really do put people out of business. That happens. But most of the time, this is not happening. COVID was this huge exogenous event, but how many times in our lifetimes has this happened? This is why I'm saying that most of the time, your mindset can be the difference between success and failure. And I personally discovered mindset work when I opened this company, Tech for Non-Techies. And I didn't really know about it in my last company when I was running my first tech company called NT. And honestly, now that I have these tools, I can look back and think that I would have been a better manager and I would have been a better steward of my team. And I think I would have actually also made better decisions. And honestly, right now, I have a life coach, I have a therapist, and I also have a business coach. And all of this costs money and a lot of time for me, but I get results. When I invest in my mindset, my company makes more money. I do more interesting work, and I generally have a better experience of life. And that's good return on investment, right? And guess who agrees with me? Ben Horowitz, the billionaire VC backer of Facebook and Airbnb, amongst other things. In his book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and I did an episode on it ages ago, Ben Horowitz says that the hardest part of being a founder is not strategy or funding, it's managing your own psychology. You need to go from feeling like an imposter to feeling like an innovator. Every founder is going to face doubt. But non-technical founders get a double helping of doubt and pressure because, like, for example, I've literally had an investor tell me, if you can't build the product yourself, why would I invest in you? So, as I mentioned a couple of episodes ago, the market has changed, and now 4 out of 10 tech unicorns have non-technical founders at the helm, and Brian Chesky of Airbnb is a great example. Nevertheless, there is still pressure, to get a technical co-founder, to become super technical yourself. And amongst some people, amongst some parts of the market, there is still a stigma against non-technical founders. This is why your confidence and your mindset is so, so crucial, specifically as a non-technical founder. Because the truth is, the best leaders do not know everything. So as I'm recording this, I'm literally about to head off to the JP Morgan Tech Conference, and Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, is going to be there. Now, tell me, do you think Jamie Dimon knows about every product at JP Morgan, like every single product that JP Morgan makes? Is he coding their apps? No, he doesn't know about every single product. He doesn't know, like, he's definitely not coding their apps, right? So good leaders know what they don't know. They learn what they have to learn. So good leaders are constantly learning. And they also hire for what they know they will never learn, right? Jamie Dimon is going to have a team of lawyers, a team of developers, a team of strategists, and so on. And you might be thinking, yes, Sophia, I get it, because this is really obvious for the CEO of an international investment bank. But honestly, this is also possible for a solo founder because you can hire a part-time backend developer, which then allows you to focus on customer sales. which, commercialization, that's what makes or breaks a business, right? So as I said, the best leaders don't know everything and they are aware of it. It is perfectly acceptable to say, yes, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a coder, but I know the customer and I know the problem and I can sell. You need to have some knowledge. You can't just be, oh, I don't know anything about technology, I don't know any of the jargon. You need to be able to speak tech, but you don't have to do tech. I want you to go from panic to perspective, from panic to strategy. So, as I said earlier on in this episode, founders usually quit, not because of failure, but basically because of fatigue. And I get it. The startup journey is exhausting sometimes. Like when something goes wrong. So, for example, I don't know, your investor pulls out or your product launch is going to be really late. The number one thing to do is to regulate your nervous system. And movement really helps with that. So if you get some stressful news, you get that email, your heart is beating, first just go for a walk. Get your body to move for about 30 minutes to an hour because you cannot make strategic decisions from a survival state. So regulate first and then get to work. I'm a really big fan of walking. And honestly, I think it is just a stress relief for me. And when you're back from your walk, let's then use your strategic mind to figure out the next step. Here, when you start thinking strategically, focus on the maths, not the drama. What is actually happening, not what are all the bad thoughts that you're having about what's happening. If your product release is late, which is definitely going to happen. I actually did a video on this called why MVPs are always late. It's on our YouTube channel. Anyway, so if your product is late, instead of thinking, oh my God, we're all doomed, this is a disaster, actually think, well, what is the circumstance? Okay, well, the circumstance is that the release is late. And then imagine if it was somebody else's company and you were their advisor and they just said, okay, our release is going to be late. What would you say to them? So kind of take a step back and imagine that you're not you're advising this founder. So you might say that, well, lots of companies have gone through this. Lots of companies have gone through late releases. In fact, actually, most companies do. So they've survived. How have they figured it out? Because most of the time, somebody has successfully dealt with the problem before. So research their example. Maybe that person has given a podcast interview, so listen to it. Figure out how did they deal with that problem. Can you do the same thing? Because in general, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to startups, yes, each problem is individual, but there are patterns. So somebody else would have gone through something similar before. So learn from them and also just get inspired by them. Okay, if they did it, so can you. Also, practical tip, I really love Tim Ferriss's fear setting exercise. So if you've never heard of it, then just Google fear setting exercise, Tim Ferriss, fear as in scared, and basically just go through his system. So the fear setting exercise is a framework by the podcaster and author Tim Ferriss that helps you think rationally when you are basically terrified, when you are in the drama, not in the math. So in that exercise, you literally write down your worst case scenario, then you write down what you can do to prevent it. And also you write down, okay, if the worst case scenario happened, what would you do to recover from that worst case scenario? And most of the time that you'll see that this disaster in your head, it's actually manageable. Yes, it's not what you want, but it's manageable. And then once you see that, okay, you can deal with the worst of it, then you get this clarity and you can think, okay, now I can think strategically, and you basically get calmer. And honestly, I use this fear setting exercise a lot in my own life. I recommend it to a lot of our founders. We actually go through the exercise together when somebody is really feeling it. And it really, really helps because when you realize that you can mitigate the worst case scenario, you can stay calm under pressure. And remember, staying calm is your unfair advantage because most people don't stay calm. Most people make irrational decisions which end up sabotaging their plans, and just being a bit calmer than the rest is a serious competitive advantage.